In the small Kashmiri village of Hajipura, a remarkably beautiful and kind young woman named Rukshar lived in total isolation. Her neighbors actively avoided her, whispering behind closed doors. To the village, she was an omen, a cursed bride. That reputation was built on a series of unsettling tragedies. Years earlier, her first fiancé, Hamid, died violently on the eve of their wedding. 6 months later, a second suitor was killed in a sudden car crash immediately after his family asked for her hand. After 4 long years of heavy silence, a stranger arrived. He was a handsome young man named Ruslan. He carried himself with perfect manners and asked Ruksar's mother for permission to marry her daughter. The family's sudden relief was short-lived. A passing holy man, a fakir, caught a glimpse of this guest from the doorway. He pulled Ruksar's mother aside and delivered a chilling warning. The man sitting in her living room was death in disguise. Shabana Begum was caught between the hope for her daughter's happiness and the holy man's prophecy that this stranger would end her bloodline entirely. To understand her dread, we have to look closely at the history of these supposed accidents. This timeline tracks the major events in Ruksar's life. Notice the very first marker. Before the first death even occurred, Ruksar reported a persistent feeling of being watched by an unseen presence from the graveyard behind their house. Now look at the timing of the fatalities. Hamid, a healthy young man, didn't slowly succumb to a known illness. He suddenly began vomiting blood right as the wedding details were finalized. A few months later, the second suitor met his end the moment his family proposed the union. In both cases, a lethal event was triggered only when a rival male attempted to claim Ruksar. Village superstition blames a broad, unlucky curse. However, the surgical nature of these deaths points toward the methodical elimination of romantic competition. Shabana traveled under the cover of evening to the remote shrine where the fakir lived, demanding to know the nature of the entity hunting her family. She arrived just in time to witness a terrifying execution. An invisible force grabbed the holy man and violently launched him into the dark sky before letting him drop to his death. As the unseen attacker landed back on the dirt path, it shapeshifted. The monstrous force smoothly condensed into the physical form of Ruslan, the handsome stranger from her living room. The entity at play is known in Islamic folklore as a jinn kabis. Unlike standard spirits, a kabis is a malevolent class of jinn recognized specifically for its aggression, physical power, and dark obsessions. This creature isn't acting out of mindless destruction. Its motivation is a possessive, obsessive love for Ruksar, turning her life and her home into a high-stakes hostage situation. Armed with this truth, Shabana sprinted back toward her home. She ran in pure terror through the pitch-black, narrow dirt paths of the village, desperately trying to outpace an unstoppable supernatural force. She finally reached her house, bursting through the front door with the desperate hope of warning her daughter. The silence inside suggested she was already too late. Sitting perfectly composed in the living room was Ruslan. He was calm, disguised, and waiting for her to arrive. He didn't even try to maintain the human illusion. Still wearing the handsome face of her future son-in-law, the jinn openly acknowledged her discovery. He stated plainly that no one could come between them, dropping the polite facade in his voice and demeanor. This quiet, domestic standoff strips away Shabana's final sense of safety. The creature doesn't need to hide in the graveyard. It has absolute control over the physical reality of her home. The jinn laid out a rigid, non-negotiable ultimatum. Shabana must quietly prepare the household for a wedding, which will take place on the first night of the new moon. He attached a condition of absolute silence. If she tries to warn Ruksar, or if she alerts anyone in the village, the monster promised to inflict a punishment worse than immediate death. This creates a trap for Shabana. She is forced to actively prepare a celebration, knowing she is handing her only child over to a demonic entity. The jinn has weaponized a mother's deepest protective instincts. By threatening Ruksar's physical safety, the creature ensures Shabana's total compliance and enforces her silence. The tragedy peaks in the contrast between mother and daughter. Ruksar is unaware of the monster in their home. feeling a renewed hope for a happy life, while her mother lives in suffocating terror. This diagram illustrates the creature's strategy. It followed 3 distinct steps. First, isolate the target by murdering suitors and letting the village label her a curse. Second, eliminate any remaining competition. Third, infiltrate the home disguised as a savior. The jinn functions as an inescapable, methodical predator, tracking every move from the graveyard to the living room. The most dangerous supernatural horrors in these stories don't wait for you in the graveyard. They sit directly in your living room, drinking tea disguised as a miracle.